Hey everybody, today we're going to talk a little bit about financing your custom home. We're joined again by the president of Texas Lone Star, Laith Daik, who will be guiding us through this process. So Laith, thanks a lot for coming. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure.
Could you give us just a quick overview of what the custom home finance process looks like? Because our buyers are confused. I think a lot of times there's these big banks that don't do the financing and there's small banks that maybe aren't really equipped. And I'd like for them to understand really what the overall process is.
Sure, great, absolutely. You know, when I first talk to a custom buyer, it's usually a very long conversation to start. And people just don't build a house every day and they don't finance a house every day. And when you add a construction project to that, it can be daunting. And so when I start off working with a buyer, usually it's a long question and answer session. And I like to have that on a phone call because there's so much that can come out in a phone call that won't come out in an email. And it really makes it a lot more efficient to have a conversation. So I start with just educating the buyer, answering some questions. And then from that point, just getting them a very broad overview of how it starts out and how the process works. After that conversation, I encourage them to submit financials and credit to us so we can start reviewing them for pre-qualification. So really step one would be just having a normal, a conversation, a question and answer session. Step two is the buyer submits financials to us along with assets, and we start analyzing their credit and financial profile. Mm-hmm. That really also is very helpful for the buyer because, at the end of the day, before you go out and, buy a lot and hire a builder, obviously you want to make sure that you qualify, number one, and that you're comfortable with the financing structure. So for us, getting their tax returns, their W-2s, pay stubs, looking at assets, looking at their credit profile, seeing what other kind of debts they have. And then once we get all that information, having a long conversation with them to understand exactly, number one, what are their goals with the transaction? What are their plans with their existing house? If they own the lot already, just kind of what are the moving parts? And based on the understanding that we have with that borrower, we're able to also shed light on the process. Number one, yes, you qualify for the loan, and then start giving them information on how the loan is structured. As part of that conversation, we're actually sending projections to them to look at and spreadsheets so we can start drilling down on the numbers and kind of the flow of the project. And, usually at the end of that exercise, which we can make that happen very quickly, when someone submits financials and assets to us, we try to turn that around and have a very good understanding and a pre-qualification done within 48 hours. At that point, the buyer is starting to feel very good about their financing. We've set expectations on down payment. We've set expectations on monthly payment, what it looks like during the construction process, what it looks like when the house is done, what happens after they sell their current house, how that works. So all those moving parts and all those questions that they have, giving them answers to those things. And it's really fun to do that. I mean, I really enjoy that part of it because it's fun to hear what people's dreams are. Number one, people call us with their dreams of what they want to build, and it's just special to be a part of that. And number two, getting them confident in what they can accomplish is a lot of fun. So, and I think we do a good job of getting people there. And the key, I think, to it all is making it transparent, which we try to do on every time we're talking to someone, educating them on the process, explaining things to them so they understand clearly, and then getting them ready to take that next step towards that custom construction project.
So once they've been pre-approved and they're going out and finding a lot, what kind of happens there? Like how much money do they need to put on the lot and how much money they need to put into financing? And then how does that work between the lot and the final construction financing?
Absolutely. So, most of the time the clients are either looking for a lot or own a lot. When they're going to buy a lot or looking to source a lot, on a lot loan, the down payment's 25%. So whatever the sales price is, 25% of that will be your required down payment. When we do a construction loan, after they've secured the lot, after they buy a lot, from that point, they're, working with their custom builder, designing plans, working with an architect potentially as well, getting plans and specs put together, and then from there, bidding it out with a custom builder to get an idea of what that project's gonna cost them. Usually we hear from that buyer again when they're, say, 60 days out from completing that process. So at that point, they've finished their plans, they've got elevations and floor plans, and they're probably working on engineering. They've picked their builder, the custom builder, and so they have preliminary bids and budgets on what that's going to cost. They have a fairly good idea that's framed of what the project's going to cost them. And at that point, usually we'll get re-engaged. What we do is we'll find out exactly how much their budget is, what the proposed budget is, and then from there we'll work on projections for the construction loan. On a construction loan, we can loan 85% of project cost, which is only a 15% down payment. And I say that because most banks require 20 or 25% down.
Really?
We actually have been approving borrowers with as little as 15% down. So the leverage sometimes is helpful. Not every borrower wants that kind of leverage, but we offer it. And sometimes it's nice, especially if they don't want that leverage long term. They may need it short term because they have a house with equity they want to sell, and they may not want to tap into that equity until they sell it. So so during that process, we're again, looking at that budget, looking at their lot, and giving them some projections on what this is going to look like when they close. We can use the equity in their lot. So the 15% down, the way that you calculate that is you take what they originally paid for the lot, whatever that purchase price was, you add the construction budget to that. When you get the total of those two numbers, that's what we call project cost. So your land cost plus your construction budget equals project cost. Whatever that project cost number is, we'll loan up to 85% of that project cost, as long as it appraises at that or higher. And so one of the other things we do is get an appraisal to make sure that the house is going to appraise for what it's costing them to build. So when you calculate that 15% down based on project cost, the equity that you have in the lot is being considered as part of that, because our loan amount is 85% of the total. Well, their loan amount on their lot is 75% of what they paid. So that 25% equity piece they have is being considered as part of the down payment.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Good. That's very helpful. I know that's a question that most of them are asking. And then what about permanent financing? How does permanent financing work?
Well, the construction loans that we do offer a permanent phase, so you can actually stay in the loan long term. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of clients, when they finish construction, they'll come back to us to go to the normal kind of traditional mortgage market. And at that point, we would set up a second loan to pay off the construction to perm loan. Mm-hmm. So that's done sometimes as well. But all the construction products, for the most part, that we offer on custom construction projects have a permanent phase. And what's nice about that is it takes out a lot of risk. And the risks that are there are your interest rate risks, like what happens you start construction, what are rates going to be when the house is done.
Right.
If your loan has a permanent phase, then you've hedged against interest rate risk. The other hedge you're hedging against is application risk, which is you finish your construction project, do you still qualify? And on a straight construction loan where it doesn't have a permanent phase, you're forced at the end of that construction project to get a permanent loan. If the loan has a permanent phase to it, you're not forced to do anything because you've already qualified for both the construction and the permanent. So having those two safety nets, is what I like to call them, is very nice for a client because it protects them from those two risks.
Well, this has been wonderful. A lot of great information. I'm sure our viewers are really going to appreciate it. But thanks so much for coming and spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and enjoy working with you and your buyers.
If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. We have a lot more good content coming out. We'd love for you to watch it. Also, if you're interested in having a custom home built in the Houston area, please check us out on our website at aspirefinehomes.com. Thanks again.